Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. So I was putting the slides together and I realized that I was going to have to go a bit slower because of the translation. And so I've kind of dropped some of the not frightening people bit, which I'm hoping we might come on to in a later discussion. But I'll go as quickly as I can and hopefully we'll get to it. But otherwise, this is going to be some kind of quite practical case studies on using Internet of Things technology to improve accessibility of public space. Sorry? I think so. Well, we'll see how far I get. I'll definitely stop in 15 minutes. Okay, so yeah, I'm an independent designer and I'm interested in digital technology, public space, and older and disabled people. And I do projects that involve at least two of these areas. And I'm going to present two projects that involve all three. And I'm going to start with sort of how I got into this. I've been designing bits of the public realm for 11 years. And 8 years ago, I started shadowing disabled people as they navigate public spaces in order to better understand their needs, I guess, and to get beyond having spent some years working with standards and being frustrated that the standard didn't give you enough information about the context in order to design properly. I started to explore the actual context by shadowing people. And the first project I did, I shadowed 8 people with sight loss on behalf of the UK government's advisor on architecture. And I wrote up this publication kind of looking at mainly like low-tech design of streets from the point of view of people with sight loss, trying to reinforce the standards with a bit of context. Then a kind of a big takeaway from that first bit of research was the impact that temporary disruptions to the built environment made on people with sight loss. That when there was predictability in the environment, people were sort of able to cope. But the minute something was different to how they expected it, that was very, very disproportionately problematic for those people. So that gave a really nice design brief to do some more research in a design project looking at roadworks, which are the most common cause of temporary disruptions, so construction sites in the public realm. That project led on to this creation of this system called Sightline, which combines 3 kinds of information, I guess, in that environment, on the basis that you've got a very diverse use group, and you can provide tactile information that will be useful to some people. But there are a load of people for whom actually they'd rather not touch the stuff if they don't have to. And if you can provide them with really high contrast visual information, that's much more helpful. And then obviously there's a certain amount of information that you can communicate with a tactile and visual system, but there's stuff that people want to know that just is too complicated. And that's where adding a digital layer to the system comes in really useful. So when we designed this thing 4 years ago, we were using QR codes and NFC and GPS virtual tags to handle that information. But now we're using iBeacon, because with iBeacon we can serve that information to people in a way that actually makes a lot more sense. So it's really helpful that that technology has come along as we've been doing this project. But back when we designed the physical elements, we did a controlled trial on streets in London and tested it with 13 participants with sight loss. 11 of them preferred the modified system to the existing setup. None of them preferred the existing one. This is last week. We're on site in North London doing a trial with actual Streetworks operatives, which is really exciting. And we've got the iBeacon thing fully up and running. So there's an app that the construction workers use to very, very quickly go through some checkboxes to register a description of the site, which can then be retrieved by another app from the iBeacon and from GPS virtual tags. And it works. It's amazing. You walk up to it, and just at the time when you want to get the information, you get an audio description of the configuration of the site and how long it's going to be there. So having done a lot of shadowing of people with sight loss, I started doing these projects where I was doing these participatory access audits for local authorities and started shadowing people with all kinds of different impairments. And what was really interesting about this is these projects tended to be focused around particular small areas of, city centres, basically, in British towns. And it was really, really interesting getting to see how different disabled people experience exactly the same bits of public space. These are drawings of sort of all the people that we shadowed as part of this one project in York. And when we were writing it up and trying to describe to the local authority what they might do to make the public space more accessible, we realized that so many of the decisions were trade-offs between the needs of different disabled people. So, for example, there was this huge group of people with walking difficulties, but they were ambulatory. And these people would be massively advantaged by having more seating, more evenly distributed through the city along routes that they wanted to use. But because of restricted footway width, that seating would present a barrier to people using wheeled mobility aids. And all through the environment, we're constantly making those trade-offs. We have to design a street that works for everyone, and what that ends up being is the best compromise between people's different needs, which is never a particularly good fit for anyone's needs. At the same time, I was doing this research project for a British disability charity looking at how accessibility was managed in digital technology, both in terms of devices and websites and apps and things. And a really strong takeaway we took from this project was the importance of adaptability. The fact that digital technology's great strength in the area of accessibility is its ability to reconfigure around the needs of particular individuals, to present individuals with subtly different experiences. I realized that we really needed that in the public realm. This is a YouTube video of, which I'm not going to show you because we haven't got time, but it's amazing. It's like a load of older people in an area of North London rapping about not having enough time to cross the road because the mayor changed all the phasing of the crossings in order to make traffic move more freely through the city. So another trade-off here. And I sort of realized, well, we don't need to give everyone the same amount of time to cross the road. If we can tell that there's someone that's there that needs extra time, we have the technology to give them extra time and not give extra time to everyone that turns up. So that's sort of where this responsive street furniture project, which Steve alluded to earlier, came from. And so for the last 2 years, been working with marshals to make this happen, I guess. And so we've got items of street furniture that are able to recognize different disabled individuals approaching and to do different things, like brighter street lighting, audio information, extra places to sit. And we're working on the more time to cross with some traffic engineers in Transport for London. This is the sort of system architecture. So there's a one-off registration step on a website where you put in the address of a Bluetooth key fob. We're working on smartphone support. And then from then on, you register the address and you request the help that you'd like the environment to provide you. And that's then stored. It doesn't take any more information from you. We don't need registration. We don't need a phone number. I was very conscious, having spoken to older and disabled people about their hopes and fears from technology, that a lot of these people aren't natural technophiles, and so you have to build this stuff in a way that's sensitive to their expectations and fears. And so really, really minimizing the amount of information about them you're collecting creates a great deal of reassurance. So there's this one-off registration process, and then whenever you go near one of these items, it hits the database, checks to see if there's anything it can do, and if it can, it does it. Here's a bollard out in the world. And these, the bollard, the map totem, and the street light are available from Marshalls to buy now if you want. And we're working on loads more integrations going forward. And here's another image with of the 3 items that are currently on sale. think that's it.
Okay.